Hey yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to Yo a Nerd, and today I have two very special guests coming on to talk about their Kickstarter. I have Tony Cade and Robert Jeffery II. So, how y'all doing today, y'all?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, Malcolm?
I'm doing great as always.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having us.
Hey, no problem, no problem. You're here to promote your new Kickstarter, the Fox Chronicles 1 and 2. So,
Yep, Fox Chronicles
yep,
1 and 2.
yeah, let's get talking about that. So, I see here your first Kickstarter did very well, and you guys looking to have the same success with the second one?
We hope. Kickstarter's changed, and unfortunately and stuff, it's been a while since we put out a new issue. But the great thing for people to know is that the second issue is basically completely finished.
Mhm.
Technically, all I got to do is do the credits page, and we can just send it straight to the publisher. I mean, to the printer. So it's completed, and we've actually already started work on issue 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. And there's I think on the preview page there's this preview artwork of the third issue, right?
Yeah,
On there. Okay.
we,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
share one page. You know
Gotcha.
how I am. I'm stingy with sharing pages.
And I'll be sharing that right now. Yep, it should be coming on the screen right now.
Awesome.
Oh, so this is a preview of book 2. Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
You want to go with that, Robert?
Yeah. So the story focuses on a teenage girl from Atlanta, Georgia. Her name is Autumn Fox, and she the short version is that she knows, and it's not even a discovering, like she knows by this point that she has these awesome abilities, which she decides to use to fight against human trafficking, which is a even in the, let's say, far-flung future, or not too far-flung future, is still an issue that the world is dealing with. So in her backyard, in Atlanta, she decides to use those abilities to save the forgotten. The other thing about the story is that Autumn is central to an even larger galactic spanning story that we're going to build on in the future. But think of this as her year one. So if you think about like Batman year one, this is her coming into her own, but using these galactic saving abilities, to save to save, once again, to save the people of Earth, who are, like I said, who are the ones that are being forgotten and trafficked. So that's kind of the short version of it. We are definitely building a larger story, but we wanted to start with focusing on highlighting a black teenage girl using her power to, just to save the day, which is, something that's it's getting better, especially in indie comic books. It's always been better. Mainstream, they're catching up to us. But we definitely wanted to highlight the fact that there are like young women, kicking butt and saving the day.
Yeah, so I actually want to ask about that. Tony, I saw in the very first Kickstarter you had mentioned the fact that you are a book owner and that you also, I think you said you have 4 teenage daughters.
Yes.
Yes, and so you wanted this to
Well,
be
no.
like a
Wait, I had 4 teenage daughters. Now I've got like 4 grown daughters, and I've got teenage grandkids. You know,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like might not look it, but I'm a bit ancient, so
right. But I saw that you wanted to like have a book where it represents them as something you can pick, like if they ask for a comic book, you can recommend them this book. Could you speak on that a little bit?
but like I said, the main thing is that there weren't a lot of comics out there featuring women of color. You know, and even getting people to read the books that spotlight women, period, is a hard thing to do. So, my whole thing is trying to produce something where it fits a niche, it fits something that's needed,
Mhm.
but also is a good enough quality that, we can get anybody to pick up this book and read it.
Okay.
So that was my main goal. And
And
then
Robert,
also, we're also, besides giving an entertaining story, we're also giving a story that's helpful, because it actually gives information.
I like that. And Robert, for you, is there anybody in your family kind of you took inspiration to write this character?
Um, you know, always, my mom, she's it, the strength that Autumn, I'd say that she presents in both these issues, definitely comes from her. My wife, um, strength, beauty, magnificence, all of that, and also, just being a focused and driven, woman, and I have a couple of nieces who I think that would definitely, um, I guess, the age set that we're going for, with this, are kind of represented. So they're in that kind of young adult to teenage bracket. So like immediately speaking, I always say, like, I've been surrounded by nothing but like positive, strong women in my life. So, but those are like the, kind of first and foremost, that come to mind, when I think about writing this character or writing her story, and doing my best to kind of represent that story for readers.
Okay. Okay. I like those answers. Okay. So to get back into kind of the about the story itself, can you talk about how Autumn Fox gets her powers without giving too much away?
Tony, that's on you. Tony's a creator.
Okay. Well, not well. Shoot. Scroll back up on this page.
Okay. Tell me when to stop.
Let me see. Or is that the first one we sold the space scenes? Well, you know what?
Oh, this one?
Can you play that video? Will that video play?
I don't know if it'll play the sound. I gotta share the sound too. Um, it might play the sound. If I play it, just let me know if you can hear it.
All right.
In the near future, a teenager from Atlanta, Georgia, Autumn Fox, uses her newfound abilities and powers to combat human trafficking. The Fox Chronicles is a coming-of-age story about a young girl's fight to save the forgotten and find her place in this galaxy-spanning adventure. The story highlights a pressing issue of today and shows how one young woman seeks to use her power to create change. If you enjoy stories like Far Sector, Ironheart, Nubia, and Netflix's Voltron Legendary Defender, this series is for you. Please support and share this campaign so we can bring this story to readers like you. Thanks for your support.
Okay, that kind of like helps her right there because it actually shows you the space battle scene that's taking place in issue 1. But basically, what you have two galactic empires that are at war, and they happen to be, in the environmental surroundings near Earth, the solar system. All right. One of the factions is attempting to have its artificial intelligence escape. Unfortunately, the ship gets hit and it fractures and splits. And one part of it crash lands in Asia, basically China, the other in Africa. All right. So it's basically been discovered in those time periods, in ancient time, prehistoric times, and has been transferring from generation to generation over time until Autumn's parents get together, create her, and the intelligence becomes whole. And,
Yes.
and the character you see right there in blue, his name's John.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he is that artificial intelligence, but he is also part of Autumn. And for her, he's always been there. So, they're pretty much like twins. Right. And because of his relationship and growing up with her, he is, let's say, a lot more human than he would have been otherwise.
Mm.
And so that's how you pretty much get our origin. I think
And
I gave
where?
enough information and was vague enough.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know how much you were going to go into the origins and how she got her powers and who John was. So I wanted to ask you, like, where did you get the inspiration for, like, you know, that whole storyline, like with the artificial intelligence and like how how he had two parts that ended up actually meeting and coming together to make her. Like, where did you get the inspiration for that?
Well, all right. I basically created another character beforehand
Mm-hmm.
called Amber Fox when I was editor-in-chief of Terminus Media. And she was basically a combination of Doctor Who and Laura Croft.
Right.
And she had an origin. All right. But since I left the company, you know, I hadn't really been doing any independent comic stuff. Then a couple of artists that I worked with Terminus Media back in the day, both contacted me the same week. And we're talking about that they wanted to do something and do a story with that character. I didn't really feel comfortable doing anything with that character as like a main story. So basically what I did is that I created my version of like Miles Morales. You know, you got like Peter Parker and the regular, you know, MCU 616 universe. And then you've got Miles Morales that's in another universe. So I created Autumn. And so I also had to come up with like a completely different origin for her. And like I said, you know, I don't know where the inspiration came from, but like I said, you know, I've been watching sci-fi movies and reading books, you know, since the 70s. And so, you know, a bunch of different stuff came into my head. And I thought that this would be a good origin story. And it was an origin story that I hadn't seen before. You know, that's the main thing. Because, you know, you usually get those situations like somebody creates something and they're like, oh, well, he got that from that, or he got that from this, you know. So trying to come up with something that was, you know, what I thought was original, or at least something that I hadn't seen before, was what I was striving for. You know, it's like, you know, Stan Lee, you know, in the beginning, he was creating all these origin stories for characters. And then he just got to the point of like, yeah, mutants, you know, you know, and that way I don't have to come up with a whole origin story, you know. But like I said, you know, I wanted the challenge of actually creating an origin story, and that's what I came up with.
Hey, and
I thought it would be important to her whole background.
And I like the story. It's I definitely, like I said, I like the space part of, like the science fiction part of it, but I love the fact that it's real grounded. Like it's like you said, like a Miles or Peter Parker, how they're, you know, like street level heroes. Yeah. And I like how her story has like this bigger theme to it, but it's still very grounded.
Yeah.
And Robert, I wanted to ask you, as writing for Green Lantern, writing for that, is there some of the things that you took from that to add to this character, especially with the science fiction feel?
The space opera of it all. I mean, it was one of those things where I'm a big space opera fan. So I don't know if you can see behind me, I have the blueprint of the Starship Enterprise behind me,
okay,
up on the wall. So, you know, Tony will tell you I'm Star Trek going way back, but just space opera in general. But so one of the things when Tony, because I've been working with Tony back to those Terminus Media days. So I'd written Autumn Fox myself, actually Amber Fox before. But when he pitched this idea of having this galactic backdrop to the new character that he was creating, Autumn Fox, I said, okay, when can I start writing the script? Like, so it was one of those things that the space opera genre is in my blood. So as far as like applying what I did with Green Lantern to this was just trying to build an epic story. But even in that Green Lantern story, like you said, it's grounded because it's focusing on ideas of racism and bigotry, even on a far-flung planet, you know, galaxies away. So here it's just like we have this, you know, intergalactic space war, but at the heart of it is just a young woman who wants to do better, for an issue that's affecting, the people around her. So I think that's, kind of where I tried to, what I, took from something like, working on that, Green Lantern to something like this.
Okay. And how do you balance something like that? How do you balance the real world with the more comic booky science fiction?
It's first and foremost, I always say that it comes down to character. So, one of the things that I talk about is, let's say, I'll be at a show, and then a writer or an artist comes up and says, I have this great idea and this and that. And, one person, this family fought this family, and then there were explosions and all this stuff and da 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 da. And I was just like, okay, so what about your characters? It's like we get so hyped up on the worlds that we're building. But what should come first and foremost are the people that are central to the story. So in this case, it's this thing of the thing that I love that we've done with this is that even though we give an origin story, we don't necessarily get to see Autumn growing up and just learning about this. She already knows. So what we're kind of following is her using those abilities to do something rather than just waiting to go to space or to fight this intergalactic battle or this war. So I think that with focusing on her directly, it helps us to ground the story, but then also give us someone to care about when the big stuff starts popping off. So, when we eventually get to the, to the space stuff, it's going to feel even more better because we've gotten to learn more about this character, but also what she's decided to do with her abilities. Rather than just going to fight the Star Wars, she's going to save people here, and I think that's crucial to building her character.
And then so I want to also talk about, I got a preview here of the comic itself. And I kind of want to go into you guys here when you talk about her, using her powers for stuff that's more grounded before she even gets to the space stuff. In her comic, like you see here, she deals with human trafficking. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys, why was that a topic? Because, people use gang violence, human trafficking, corruption, stuff like that. Why did you guys choose to use human trafficking?
Okay, well, I have to give credit to the Center for Disease Control.
Mm-hmm.
All right, many years ago, Robert and I worked on a project for the CDC that dealt with HIV and AIDS awareness, where we were actually creating and writing motion comics for the CDC, tackling those problems. All right. During that time period, I was hearing the discussion, and they were talking about child trafficking, and that was a problem that the CDC was dealing with. And in my head, I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's not a, disease or virus or bacteria. What does that have to do with, the CDC? And they explained to me is that it's still considered a pandemic. And so it was still under their preview to tackle such a subject. And so in my head, I started thinking, oh man, as we get through with this HIV and, AIDS awareness thing and stuff, I'm going to talk to them about doing something about, human trafficking, child trafficking. Unfortunately, our work relationship with the CDC didn't continue. Every time the government changes, and there's always funding issues and stuff like that. So we weren't able to continue, working with them. But it was still something that was in my head of something that I still wanted to tackle. And so it just basically got to the point, it's like, okay, well, I can't do it for the CDC, but what's stopping it from doing it myself? And I actually reached out to the CDC and actually spoke with people and stuff that were in charge of human trafficking issues. And they shared a lot of information with Robert and I on the issues and how many different forms it can take, and what to look out for. And so those are elements that we're actually integrating into the story. It's like we're giving you a really good story, but we're also educating you. So you're enjoying the story and you're absorbing knowledge, but it's not like somebody's preaching to you about anything. You're learning organically.
And and to piggyback on that, one of the things that we discovered, and I think even before doing the CDC research, is that at one point, and I don't know if it's still the same, so like don't quote me on this for now, Atlanta was one of the largest hubs for human trafficking, and one of the things that you notice, and maybe where you live or where other people live, like if you go into gas stations down here, like Quick Trip, if you look in the bathrooms, there are warning signs in there that basically say, if you are a victim of human trafficking, please go to the cashier, let somebody know. And it basically you have warnings like that to help people because they may be trafficked over, interstate, lines, near gas stations. The other thing I noticed that you will see those same signs in public restrooms. So it's just like, this is something that I don't think people even notice when they go to the bathroom. Like you look on the backs of the doors or you look on the walls, and these warnings are giving you steps to save yourself or to find assistance. So when that becomes the normalcy to a certain degree, then it gives us that material or that topic that we can talk about, which it looks as if it's affecting a lot of aspects of the world that we live in. I mean, you can look into the statistics about the industries that benefit from trafficking, modern day slavery. So it's something that it was hitting us here in the city, in Atlanta or in Georgia. So that in addition to the material that we got from this, CDC, gave us that conflict or that issue that we could tackle, which was like, quote unquote ground level.
And like I said, I don't want, everybody thinking it's like, oh, I didn't know Atlanta was, bad like that. It's like Atlanta is a hub for like a lot of things. World busiest airport. We've got multiple interstates, I-20, I-75, I-85. They're all connected by 285. Mm-hmm. This is a hub for a lot of things, even drugs pass through here. So basically any commerce that's going on in the Southeast, you have to basically go through Atlanta.
Yeah.
And like something positive or negative.
Yeah. And like we said, maybe it's gotten better, but I remember like at one point that was something that was coming up more frequently. So we decided to tackle it, in this series.
Yeah. And I like that you guys did it. I like that you guys took something, very real world and something that's really affecting people, especially in the areas where you guys are from, and putting it into your comic. It really gives like it a authentic feel to it. After reading the comic and hearing you guys talk about it, it really does feel like you guys dug into it, like you knew about this topic. I was like, yeah, they definitely either had something to do with this topic or, dealt with this topic or been affected by it. So I really like that you guys put that in there and are trying to build a difference with this comic at the same time with putting out something dope.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is, and from a writing perspective, is if you don't know about what you're writing, research it. There is no excuse nowadays with this thing that we call the internet, where you can get credible sources. I ain't talking about like somebody's auntie's uncle's blog. I'm talking about like actual sources. And as a writer, you have to do that. If you don't have a background in that, if you have not experienced that, do your homework so that the work will come off as authentic, because it is. And then also you won't have people read this and feel like there's a falseness to it. We've had countless examples of that. We'll talk about sometimes where somebody is writing from an ethnicity or a race that they're not from. And then it shows that they have not done the homework. So for something like this, where I haven't directly been affected by this topic, it behooves me as a writer to do my homework, so that we can show how how this affects the world as a whole, and then our city, to a certain extent. Um, Otherwise, I don't want anybody reading the book. Like if it's if we're not doing the homework needed to tackle something like this.
And just as you were talking, this question kind of came to my head. So, Robert, for you as the writer and having to do the homework, and even Tony, for you being involved in it, it kind of, how does that affect you, on like a human level? Like you have to do the homework on something so horrifying, something so evil. So how does that affect you on both of y'all on a human level?
So, my faith in humanity gets sometimes lower and lower each day. I'm sorry. Like I try to, I am positive by nature. I am positive, but when you dig into something like this and the various forms that trafficking can kind of present itself as, financial, slavery, actual physical, slavery, forced kind of servitude and in different ways. Like we were learning about like nail salons, right? And some, what was that? Wasn't that one of the things, Tony? Like in, some Korean nail salons, like, some people, in certain cases, you might have somebody who has come over to this country and they're, in some cases having to work in nail salons and, to pay back their wages or something. So that's a form of slavery. So it's just like,
even massage parlors.
Even massage parlors. Yeah, that was another one. So it's one of those things where it don't look good for humanity at times, right? And it's this thing of the fact that even now, and it's been like this since the dawn of time, if you can make a buck off of somebody's pain and suffering, there are people that will continue to do that. And the fact that we have not gotten better with it says something about us. Now, I do think that what gives me hope is that there are organizations like the CDC. There are people like us who are, bringing light to the situation. And there are people who fight this fight every day, which try to help, kind of end traffic, the practice of trafficking. So that gives me hope. But like I said, I'm cynical by nature. I want us to do better, but it seems like we keep failing. So hopefully, with putting out the work that we're doing, it teaches people more about this topic so that we can move towards the positive side of things. So but yeah, no, this this wasn't fun research. Just just saying that. But Tony,
Oh, like I said, I really don't have anything extra to add to it. Like I said, for me and stuff, it was just finding out all the different information, what things, people need to look out for, but the descriptions of the type of people that are involved, how they use other people, it was just like, wow, I didn't realize a lot of the stuff was going on and, how deep it was. I mean, there's literally so much information that, we are only going to be able to touch on certain parts of it.
Yeah.
In telling this story. And then that was one of the hard things too, was picking what angles we were going to come from, because there was unfortunately so much information out there.
Okay. All right, that's a great answer. I'm sorry if that was just a random question. I was just thinking as you were talking about it. But my next question for you guys, just to get back to kind of the Kickstarter, and I see that it is up here. Why should people back this book?
I think we just went over everything. Should back it. We gave you the reason and stuff we're doing the book, and I think and stuff. It's the quality of the book. We assembled a very good quality team for doing this. Like, scroll down a little bit. Oh, well, right there, there's like a scene that I think you guys are really going to enjoy from like issue 3 when it comes out. Yeah. But yeah, just go down a little bit and stuff. A little bit more. Well, past rewards, just skip that. That's not important.
Rewards, right? Okay.
All right, here. Look at this team that I have put together. We've got people and stuff that have worked for Marvel, DC, Valiant, DC. These are like, really talented people. Robert's on the writing. The writing is going to be good. We got, Fritz working on it. We got Marcus Williams working on this, doing cover work for us. We've got, look at all the talent I assembled.
My 2 cents, aside from like what we've spoken about, I think that one of the things we learned with working with the CDC was the term edutainment, right? So you're teaching and you're entertaining at the same time. And I think that's what this is. But also when it comes to mainstream, books or movies or TV shows or video games where a young girl of color is central to that story, we ain't even at the 50% off, not 50% off. We're not at the 50-50 mark, right? So I think that this book gives that representation within a story that matters for a demographic that, to be honest, is often overlooked. And only like as far as, when I say mainstream, because I'm always going to give credit to my indie brothers and sisters, and they, them, any pronouns, because we've been doing it for a while and it's not a thing. But I think that this is a story that needs to be seen for that reason, and also that it's shining a spotlight on an issue that needs more discussion. So for that also, it's just a fun story. I mean, it's an action-packed story. Like that page that you showed, from the 3rd issue, man, when I was writing that, I was like, yeah, this is Autumn just kicking butt, for like 5 or 6 panels, go ham, Fritz did, those, so I'm excited for people to get a chance to read this, first issue if they haven't, 2nd issue if they've already read the 1st, and for us to continue to grow the story. And so I think, that's why people should check it out.
Hey, and this issue, this Kickstarter will launch today, right? Like not long after we do this interview.
Yeah, I plan on launching it later on today.
Okay, yeah. And for people listening, today is November 12th. So if you listen to this after November 12th or watching this after November 12th, the Kickstarter is live. And you got to go check this out. I've read issues 1 and 2, people, and it's a really dope series. Also, I see that you guys put some of your favorite inspirations were like Tomb Raider, Far Sector. You said if people like that, what elements from those are in this comic?
So from the Tomb Raider, it's I would say the action, we had Tomb Raider was also like a really good parallel for Amber Fox because she was a relic hunter. But I'd see the action from, Tomb Raider, and also like a strong, female protagonist. But then also as far as from Far Sector and Voltron, Legendary Defender, that space opera, the space opera side of things. And then also even with Far Sector, Joe Mullen, she's a intergalactic police officer. So, you have her solving crimes, fighting crime, in that series. So that kind of ground level crime drama, side of things, that's something that we pull from there, in addition to like the space opera side of the Green Lanterns. Shout out to DC Comics. I'm going to write that character, so I'm already going to put it out there. So in case I
was going to mention the stuff, Far Sector, they just put out a DC compact book.
Yep.
It's only $9.99. If you haven't read it, go out there and get it. You will not be disappointed. It's going to be the best $10 you could spend.
I have 3 copies of that book. I have it digital. I have the compact edition. I have the trade, and I need to get the deluxe. That's how much I'm obsessed with that character and that story. But and if we could even come close to, what was done in, that book, I die a happy man. I mean, I'll die a happy man, period. But that's what we're, that's, what you'll find, from those sources in the Fox Chronicles.
Okay. And to kind of close this out, what do you guys? I know Tony beforehand, before he's talking, he said he has a lot going on. So to close this out, what do you guys got going on with the Kickstarter and beyond the Kickstarter?
Oh, okay. Well, of course, I'm here. I'm the owner of Challenges Games and Comics. I've been doing this now for like 30 years, back since I was like young and skinny, neither one of those things now. But we're like, a full service pop culture shop. We sell comics, board games, miniature games, collectible card games. We've got anime, manga products. We got posters. We do a little bit of everything. If it's pop culture and it's popular, we're into it. Like Robert, I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I got Star Trek stuff all over the place. I've been into Star Trek since the 70s when my mom got me into it. So I've got like a full purpose shop. So, check us out at challengesgames.com. Do a little Christmas shopping. We ship all over the country. Also, every March, I run what I call it's a mini convention. It's the Atlanta Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo. We do it this year coming up. It's March 14th and 15th, 2026. The last show we had like 40 some vendors, 3 panel rooms. We did a cosplay ball, and it's free to the public to attend. And if you're a creator, we've got tables at like a really great price. This year I'm going to up it up. We're going to go with 8-foot tables, so I can give you a little bit more room to spread out your books. Robert can put all his books on the table of all the stuff he's worked on. And check us out. And that's just Google Atlanta Sci-Fi Expo. You'll see articles and everything about it. And there's tons of interviews that are done too. A lot of podcasters like coming to our show so they can interview all those guests I bring in.
It's a good show. It's a good show. So for me, previously, so this year, I had a couple of short stories. I write short stories for anthologies. One was for Terminus 3, and it's a speculative fiction and fantasy anthology published by MV Media. Shout out to Milton Davis, which focuses on sci-fi fantasy stories about Atlanta. And I wrote a short story for that called Monsters on the Mount, where it focuses on it's a space opera story set at Stone Mountain Park. By the end of the story, out spoiler, I blow that mountain up because of racism, right? So, hey, I told you I was going to do it, and I did it. I had a short story published in another anthology called Jukebox Thrillers, and the gist of the story is that you have each of the stories in the anthology is that each of the stories are titled after famous pop songs from the 1980s. And the story that I decided to choose was Luther Vandross's it's a classic song with If This World Were Mine, with Cheryl Lynn. And so I wrote the short story that was titled after that song, and it's a first for me. But it's a space opera romance short story. So hopefully there will be a Kickstarter launching for that anthology either this month or next month. Still waiting to hear back on that. But at the end of November, on November 28th, we're starting to kind of promote it now. I wrote 2 short stories for the Amazing Universe. It's a tabletop RPG, and I was hired to write 2 short stories that focus on characters from that universe. So characters that you can actually run campaigns as. Lewis Porter Jr., he's the creator, I think co-creator of the universe, but he wanted a series of short comics, which would expand the stories of these characters. So if you're a fan of Marvel comics or DC comics, definitely pick these up. I had a lot of fun kind of playing in the sandbox. I think the first story is a supernatural horror thriller, and the second story is more, let's say, ground level crime drama. So look out for from the Amazing Universe. 2 short stories that will, along with extra content, that'll be released on November 28th. And next year, all I'm going to tell people is just follow me on IG, because it's going to be a year of releases, and that's from different publishers to doing stuff myself, for self-published stuff. So, but yeah, that's the 2 short stories and in the anthologies and the comic book work. That's the stuff that I have going on right now.
Okay, I got to get personal question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting more Route 3?
That's one of the personal projects. I can tell you right now, like, I just looked at the colors on a cover that I commissioned for Route 3. Shout out to the great one, probably the greatest married art couple in the game right now, Matteo Illuminati and Ariana Patani. They live in Italy. I call Matteo my Italian brother from another mother. We go back to Mind to Avenge, to Changa and a Jade Obelisk. We'll have to come back and talk about that, Malcolm. But
I like that book too. We definitely got to talk about that.
Oh, you read Changa? Okay, cool.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Changa is shout out to Milton Davis, the creator, the original writer of the novella, and Jason Reeves of 133 Art, who's publishing the book and printing the book. I love writing that series, and Matteo is a beast. Matteo and Ariana are wonderful. But all that to say, I got them to commission a cover, and Tony, it's a sight for thine eyes. Like I was like, you do go once again, go ham. I know the kids ain't saying go ham, more, but it's so my plan is to do some more stuff with Route 3, and it's been too long. So, so Route 3, The Crossing, 2026 is going to be a big year, I think, as far as for the creator owned stuff. So.
Okay, and can you guys tell the people where they can find you? Like you said, IG, anywhere else they can find you guys?
Well, like I said, for me and stuff is that, just, Google Challenges Games, we're on everything. I let my staff take care of all that. I'm old. I'm still using Facebook,
For me, it's it's IG, under my name, robertk.jeffery, robertk.jeffery. My website is robertkjeffrey.com, robertkjeffrey.com. And those are like the 2 places to find me. Unless you're an editor, hit me up on LinkedIn. If you want to give me work, I'm all for that. But those are the 2 main places to find me.
Cool. Once again, I want to thank you guys for coming on and talking about your Kickstarter with me, and I can't wait to back it. Once it drops, it's already saved on mine, so I'm gonna back it once it drops.
Thank you. And
well, like I said, look a little bit after 8 p.m. today. It will be going live. Yeah.
And one thing, I'll make this quick. Malcolm, thank you for when I reached out to you. There was no hesitation. We appreciate you for giving us this platform. Like I was telling Tony the other night, everybody ain't like that. So I'll leave it at that. But it is, it helps us, a lot to come on the shows like yours and to, to have a platform and to show that other folks care about indie comics. So we appreciate you allowing us to come on here, and I had a good time.
Hey, yeah, thank y'all. 100%. Like, I hate that some people are, weird about that, but like, I had a great time talking to y'all, and I'm always back in indie comics. So, and especially since I got a chance to read this one beforehand, hey, it was easy, So, once again, I'd like to thank y'all for coming on, and people that are listening. In the description, I will be putting places you can find them, and of course, the link to the Kickstarter, so you can back this Kickstarter right now. By the time you're hearing this, the Kickstarter will be live. So definitely go back their Kickstarter. And once again, thank y'all for coming on.
Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.